Our Primordial World, Chapter 5. Our birth is but a sleep and a forgetting. The soul that rises with us, our life star, hath had elsewhere its setting, and cometh from afar, not in entire forgetfulness, and not in utter nakedness, but trailing clouds of glory do we come. William Wordsworth. 1. Advanced perfect worlds have always existed. Just like everything else in the universe, perfect worlds have always existed. In these worlds, the most highly advanced technologies exist and are utilized to allow human beings to experience individual happiness. The term, quote-unquote, technology used throughout this book refers to the means and ways that human beings act upon their environment with their free will. Therefore, quote, the most highly advanced technologies, unquote, are the ways and means that the most advanced humans in the universe act upon their environment. The state of the environment in which humans live upon these perfect worlds cannot be improved upon with any higher form of intelligence or technology. In other words, there is no greater means and ways that human beings act upon their environment than how they utilize technology in perfect human worlds. Everything is in its perfect state of existence, and it is impossible to make improvements upon perfection. It is possible for each of us to picture what the perfect world could be like. We just need to consider what each of us conceives as being perfect by using our imagination. We now know that our imagination is simply our ability to reflect upon things that we have experienced in our past, even though our conscious mind cannot fully pinpoint when, where, or even if we actually experienced what we are imagining. The foundation of who we are was established on a perfect world. All of our experiences on that primordial world are embedded in our essence as memories. Because of the fully functioning and highly advanced human body we possessed at the time, we were always conscious of all that we did. In that world, we did not have the ability to imagine, and we experienced no subconscious state of mind. In that perfect state, upon a perfect world, we began our existence as human beings. More about the perfect human body and our mind will be discussed in Chapter 11. 2. Our essence influences us to improve ourselves. Further proof that we existed and established memories in a world apart from the one in which we currently live is the fact that we have a subconscious part of us that we do not completely understand. Not only have we forgotten everything before our current life's early childhood, having imperfect brains, we sometimes even find it hard to remember what happened yesterday. And as our imperfect body grows older, we eventually find it hard at times to remember what we did a few seconds ago. Nevertheless, no matter how inhumane and undesirable the environment is into which we are born, all humans long for a better state of existence. One might think that a newly created human being who is born into a certain environment, even one that is inconsistent with human happiness, would adapt and find a way to deal with the given situation, without desiring to improve his or her only known state of existence. But this is never the case with human beings. All of us are continually searching for ways to manipulate our environment in order to bring us more happiness. The fact that we are able to recognize that we, and the world in which we now live, are far from perfect distinguishes us from every other life form on our planet. None other considers that its state of existence is anything but how it is, nor contemplates how it should be. Quote unquote, something about being a human being makes us strive for a better life. We long for a better existence than what we are currently experiencing. This quote unquote longing and our constant need to improve our situation are caused by what was recorded on our essence eons before we came to this planet. 3. Facing death is not a perfect human situation. We can agree that our current world is far from perfect. In considering what a perfect world should be like, most of us would want to live in one in which we would not be facing the possibility of death on a daily basis. The fact that we are slowly dying on this earth shows just how imperfect our world is. One day, the individual whom we became during this lifetime will cease to exist. Death comes in a variety of ways, from our body wearing out, from disease, from random accidents, and the acts of other free-willed humans. Regardless, it comes. None of us is immune to death. Put another way, none of us is immune to non-existence, which is the end of all of us, if it is a true reality that our current incarnate in this world is all there is to our human experience. Not to be outdone by the imperfect environment to which we are currently subjected, our own actions also cause a tremendous amount of death. Although there is nothing, presently, we can do about growing old, the main causes of premature death are our own fault. The exercising of our free will causes more death and misery in our lives than any other natural occurrence produced by our environment. Statistically, the causes of premature death from natural occurrences pale in comparison to what is actually ending our lives upon this earth. Many of us die from starvation and pestilence because other humans use their free will to subject us to their economic policies and land ownership. The free natural resources of the world, which would otherwise provide us with food and shelter, are withheld from us by the force of others. In addition, many of us cause ourselves a premature death by overeating or by eating foods that are not naturally balanced and compatible with our bodies. Eating unnatural foods that are not meant by nature for human consumption neutralizes the body's natural defense mechanisms. This prevents it from doing what it is instinctively programmed to do: kill invading bacteria, viruses, and any other substance that is not part of a body's natural makeup. Anything that is processed and changed from its natural state of existence is quote-unquote unnatural. And nothing more abruptly changes an element's natural state than the application of heat. Cooking food changes its composition and makes it unnatural. Cooking our food is literally killing us prematurely. No other life form upon our planet cooks its food before eating it. Consequently, no other life form experiences the types and regularity of disease as do human beings. Realizing that death ends our existence, our human reason causes us to wonder what the purpose might be for living in the first place. The thought of death causes us an enormous amount of stress and emotional imbalance that certainly does not add to a fulfilling life of happiness. And in our pursuit of happiness, we begin to look for any solution we can come up with that might take away the sting of death. 4. We long to perfect our world and live forever. We have a desire to better ourselves and live forever because of our essences constant subconscious energy stimulation. The energy patterns of our brains seek to find a balance with the power of our essence. Without being consciously aware of it, we are continually encouraged to create experiences that are in line with our primordial existence. In the perfect world, where we were first created, we did not die nor understand anything about the concept of quote-unquote death. The will to survive is the strongest innate desire that we have. Although we may be ignorant of all the causes of our premature death, we are motivated to do anything we can in order to prolong our lives. In our current world, with the limited technology that we do have, we are finding ways to save and extend our lives without changing our free-willed actions that cause us to sorrow in the first place. Medical and pharmaceutical sciences provide us with some means of prolonging our lives without changing our lifestyles, where otherwise our lifestyles would have killed us. As technology improves and expands, we find ourselves living much longer than our ancestors did, even though we eat unhealthier and exercise less than they did. The technological and biological advancements of the future will one day eliminate natural death altogether. For any disease we encounter, we will develop an immunization that will defeat it. If our body is traumatized and harmed from accident, or if trauma is forced upon us, we will develop a surgical procedure that will keep us alive and restore us to new. Our DNA contains plans for the development of each cell, of each organ, of each anatomical system that our body requires. Currently, it also includes instructions to stop reproducing perfect cells, which replace the old ones that are damaged or lost over time, thus causing us to grow old and die. One day, our geneticists and bioengineers will be able to override those instructions and manipulate our DNA patterns to allow the cells of our body to continue to reproduce themselves indefinitely, thus eliminating death from a slowly deteriorating body. When our current scientists discover this technology, we will never experience the effects of old age again. At least in many ways, death will become a thing of the past. 5. We don't want to live forever in a miserable state. Our physical future is bright with the technological possibilities ahead of us. But what about our positive emotional health, the fruition of which, in reality, is why we exist? Although we might eventually avoid death from natural causes or from our errant eating habits, and though we might develop safety devices to prevent accidents and others from hurting us, it does not mean that the struggle to survive will end, nor does it mean that we will live in happiness. We can have a perfect body that never grows old or dies, but if the struggle to live continues to cause us stress and misery, what purpose would there be in prolonging a miserable state of existence? We can outwardly become the most beautiful expression of human form possible, yet still remain void of the personal peace and happiness that creates inward beauty. This inner peace can only come from what some of our current psychologists call, quote-unquote, self-actualization. This means that we are able to reach our full potential as individuals, or in other words, come to know who we are and act true to ourselves. One of these so-called experts, Abraham Maslow, created what he called the quote-unquote hierarchy of human needs. He proposed that if our basic human needs were met, that we would be able to advance to the highest level of our individual potential. He has become famous among those who study human behavior because this part of his theory is profound. Indeed, we cannot become who we are unless we meet the physiological needs of the body. In our current state of existence, however, the majority of us spend all of our conscious hours and physical and emotional energy trying to meet these needs. We are forced to rely on our subconscious state to supply us with what we can dream or imagine ourself becoming. However, the time we spend dreaming and imagining is minuscule compared to the time we spend struggling to meet our physiological needs. It is through hypnosis, the relaxing of the conscious mind, and drug use that our ability to reach into our subconscious state is heightened. Yet, who has the time to do any of these in a natural way, with the current responsibilities and expectations placed upon us living in our imperfect society? Ever wonder why the greatest songs with the greatest meanings seemed to have been composed by those quote-unquote high on illegal drugs? One part of Maslow's theory, however, is dead wrong. He postulated that our need to satisfy our physical body is much stronger than our need to find out and become who we are on an emotional level. Because he spent very little time studying those of us who continually struggle to survive, the majority of his study being concentrated on the affluent and educated of the world, he missed the greatest determinant in quote-unquote self-actualization, our need to feel happy. The subjects Maslow studied had all of their physiological needs met, but they still didn't have a clue who they were, and they certainly were not very happy. We base this general conclusion on the overwhelming evidence that many of the individuals who have become extremely wealthy in our world still remain extremely unhappy. Maslow rejected the existence of the human essence and the power it has in urging us to become the person we were foundationalized to be. Thus, his studies and work failed to help any of us find what we are constantly looking for: happiness. Maslow's studies failed to conclude that, in reality, the strongest need of a human being is to have a perfect balance between the body and the essence. This is happiness. 6. Advanced technology supports a perfect world. The perfect world, where our essence was foundationalized, not only provided us with a perfect body that was impervious to any disease or to the effects of age, but also with everything we needed to live. There was no struggle to survive. The quote-unquote advanced scientists who exist in these worlds know how to manipulate and control every aspect of their environment. They know how to cause specific pressure changes in the atmosphere that will cause it to rain on demand anywhere they choose. They know how to tilt the planet just the right way towards the life-giving sun to create constant temperatures that feel pleasing to our body, not too hot and not too cold. They know how to grow the right plants that provide the perfect foods that not only agree with and completely satisfy our taste buds, but also delight the body's senses of sight, smell, and touch, and all the while support the healthy nature of the perfect human body. 7. Perfect plants and animals were part of the ultimate sensory foundational experience. There were no nauseous weeds or irritating plants upon our perfect planet. There were only those plants that were pleasant to the sight, smell, taste, and touch, all of which provided the ultimate in human experience. The grasses were lush to the touch of the bare feet, and one could run without fear of stepping on a thorn or a thistle, which were nowhere to be found. Fruits and flowers grew spontaneously, and there were no seeds to produce the thorns, thistles, briars, and nauseous weeds that now afflict and torment our senses. With the advanced technology available on perfect planets, Horticulturalists, farmers, and even simple personal gardeners can develop whatever type of plant they want for whatever purpose they desire. In fact, in our imperfect world, there is nothing that anyone will ever come up with that does not already exist somewhere else in the universe. Through our ability to reason, dream, and imagine, we have created species of plants and animals that serve our needs. Just because we live in an imperfect world does not mean that we do not demonstrate all of the human propensities we had while living in a perfect one. We were created to be like our creators, or better, to exist as the perfect, advanced human beings we were when our existence began. We have the same desires as they have, and we will use our environment to seek to satisfy these desires just as they do. In our primordial world, there were no animals, from the largest dinosaur to the tiniest insect, that afflicted or threatened human beings, nor did they threaten each other. The killing of another living organism and the consumption of its flesh is a thing of uncivilized, imperfect worlds, where it is necessary for humans to experience the opposite of a perfect world. The perfect animal kingdom in our primordial world existed solely to assist the perfect plant kingdom in perpetuating itself, and vice versa. Both of these quote-unquote kingdoms existed solely for the experience of the human kingdom. Every animal was as comfortable with humans as a puppy is with a child, and as a child is with a puppy. No creature existed that could hurt or destroy another. There existed, for example, no animals with the huge teeth and digestive system needed to destroy another. The DNA patterns of all animals were programmed to coexist in a symbiotic state of perfection. Advanced technology and genetic engineering of plants and animals allow these organisms to live forever. They continually perpetuate themselves so as to maintain the perfect natural balance of all things. For example, the sweat of a laborer's brow is not needed to ensure a plant's fruitfulness. Instead of a human laborer who is hired in an imperfect world to pinch off the right amount of buds from a fruit-producing bush so that it can yield just the right amount of fruit. A beautiful deer that enjoys the bush's buds was created and genetically programmed to nibble off just the right amount and keep the bush trimmed properly. So the human being enjoys not only the fruit of the bush, but also the companionship of the deer. Advanced humans have the ability to create whatever plant or animal they desire to fulfill their own personal needs for happiness. 8. We attempt to create perfect environments. The perfect world so far described above should be easy to visualize and imagine when we take into account what we can and have already accomplished upon this earth. With the right amount of resources, a person generally can control what vegetation grows where, thus adorning any environment according to the beauty of the eye of the landowner. Herbicides eliminate unwanted plants and insecticides eradicate undesired bugs. Crossbreeds of many different animals can ensure that a person is surrounded by the most docile breeds of what would otherwise be wild animals. Our current ability to organize our world into what we want it to be is limited only by our resources and our imagination to create it. No other organism seeks to manipulate its environment so that it appears beautiful. All other non-human organisms only use their environment to provide for their physical needs. These other life forms have no sense of perception, of order, or beauty, except as it relates to the needs of their own species. Human beings behave unlike any other living organism because they have what all other living things do not: a human essence that was foundationalized to recognize beauty and perfection, even in other species. A lion does not contemplate the beautiful skin and muscle tone of a gazelle. The lion simply wants to eat the beautiful gazelle to satisfy its hunger. 9. It's easy to visualize the perfect environment. The advanced human beings who were responsible for our foundationalization had limitless resources available to them. The only limitation placed on what they could do with their environment was its physical expanse, that is, for those who did not venture into the uninhabited realms of the universe and create their own planets, solar systems, and galaxies. And the only reason they limited the size of their own world was because they only needed a specific amount of space in order to do what makes them happy. The majority of advanced human beings are very satisfied to not be responsible for other human beings and to simply enjoy the planet on which they live. They are surrounded by those who have similar personal interests. Each has everything possible available to them in order to fulfill each of their individual desires of happiness. If they desire their own country, for example, the space will be provided. Consider the space that would be available on a developed, life-bearing planet the size of Jupiter or Saturn, for example. Again, it should be easy for the reader to visualize this. Just think what you would do if you had unlimited resources. What kind of house would you build? What kind of gardens would surround your house? What kind of pets would you keep, both inside your house and outside in your gardens? There would be rivers, creeks, hills, and mountains to beautify your surroundings and bring joy to your senses, all according to your sense of experience. It is easy to imagine these things. Relax your mind for a while. Forget about everything you are doing for a moment. Reach deep within the corners of your seldom explored essence, and you will come up with the perfect environment. The description is perfectly recorded there, and because it is, we do not need to spend much time describing a world with the perfect environment. 10. It's not easy to visualize the perfect society. What is not so easy for us to visualize is a perfect society of people. It's hard for us to imagine these things because our current experience is void of any known example. Although we can find those in our imperfect world who have the means to surround themselves with what seems to them to be a perfect natural environment of flora and fauna, there exists no mortal person upon the earth who exemplifies the perfect human being. While these very few with landscaped, seemingly perfect personal environments hide behind their gated quote-unquote worlds, millions more of us suffer from poverty, hunger, homelessness, sickness, and a pitiful state of existence. Most of us are constantly struggling to provide ourselves with the basic necessities of life. This wasn't the case in our perfect world. There we became who we really are, as we witnessed and recorded in our memory, our essence, the ideal example of humanity. The qualities and characteristics of the human beings in that world presented humanity in all of its full glory and splendor. Again, this is the reason why we long for quote-unquote utopia. We dream of a perfect society that would create a peaceful world, which we will recognize immediately when we experience it again. 11. Unconditional equality in our primordial world. Our first experiences were in a world where everyone was treated unconditionally equal in all things. All people with whom we associated were equally beautiful and equally intelligent and knowledgeable. Knowledge, as we currently view it, is the accumulation of information. Intelligence is the ability and way that we use this information. Because we were all exposed to the exact same things in the first stage of our existence on a perfect planet, we all had the exact same knowledge. During our formative period of foundationalization, our intelligences were also equal in that we all had the capability of utilizing the knowledge that we gained according to our own individual free will. Thus, each of us developed our own unique personal intelligence. In other words, no one forced us to use our knowledge in any specific way. Our mothers did not establish expectations of how we should use the information that we were acquiring from our new experiences. Initially, therefore, because there were no expectations, there were no classes or grades of intelligence. We were all equally intelligent because we used our knowledge as each of us wanted, thus becoming the most intelligent person that existed according to our own experience. No one else used their knowledge like each of us did individually. Therefore, there was no one as intelligent as we were. Likewise, we were not any more intelligent than anyone else was. Thus was established our human yearning to be treated equally with everyone else. Why? Because we saw ourselves as being completely equal with everyone else in all things. Because we were. Throughout the universe, however, there will always be those who have more power or abilities than others. In other words, there will always be some who have a greater ability to make use of their knowledge than others. Only in this way could we say that some are more intelligent than others, but never more knowledgeable. Where there are two beings, one having more intelligence than another, there always exists another having more intelligence than them. However, those humans who gain the ability to utilize all the knowledge that is available to them and all other humans in the universe will be those who are the creators. And in using their knowledge as they do, they are more intelligent than all others. Moreover, because our creators have a creator, there will always be someone in the universe more intelligent by use of their knowledge than us. But in spite of the semantics in the way we perceive knowledge and intelligence, it can be properly concluded that the human being who is the most happy is indeed the most intelligent, as happiness is what all humans seek. 12. The universe revolves around each of us. Since we were foundationalized with equality, we were conditioned to understand that the entire universe exists for each of our own personal sakes. We can correctly say, quote, "Without me, the universe would not exist. Because I exist, so does the universe. The universe was created for me. I am the most important thing in the universe." Unquote. All of these statements are true because that is how we were treated by the advanced parents/creators who brought us into existence. Without us living and being able to recognize ourself as a separate part of everything else that exists, what purpose would the universe have? If we cannot conceptualize the universe, then it would mean nothing to us. Moreover, if we cease to exist, so does our universe. From the very moment that the first light reflected off our mother's face and into our eyes, when her image was recorded by our essence as our very first memory, we were treated as if the universe revolved around us. Is it any wonder, then, why human beings appear so arrogant and self-centered in our current world? Doesn't it bring us a tremendous amount of happiness to know that we are the best in the world and that no one else is as good as we are, or at least we are just as good as everyone else? Unfortunately, our current state does not allow us to actualize the potential of our true selves, nor does it allow us to believe that we are just as good as everyone else is. Thus, we are out of balance with who we really are and subject to feelings of unhappiness. From our current imperfect experience, there always seems to be someone stronger, smarter, more successful, more beautiful, or happier than us. Those who establish themselves in our current world as being better than others are the most insecure with themselves. These continually try to maintain an inequality because they are afraid another is going to come along who is perceived as being better than them. If they could only remember how we were all created and treated equally, and that each of our experiences will always be different from everyone else's, then their perception of quote-unquote better would change. They would understand that none of us will ever achieve a state where we can truly perceive ourselves as being quote-unquote the best or better than anyone else. It is possible, however, to come to a sense of peace and happiness in knowing that we are just as good as everyone else. This is possible because the universe exists to support this true reality. We experienced it on the world where we were foundationalized as human beings, and we will experience it again once we transform our world into what we know is best for all of humanity. 13. Our development in isolation ensured our sense of self-worth. We have already learned that when we went through our foundationalization process, we were isolated from other human beings. We did not foundationalize around those who were not parents and who lived in their own state of continual happiness, doing whatever they wanted, without the responsibility of worrying about the development of another. One of the main reasons for this isolation was so that our mothers could control how we developed our sense of self, or in other words, our self-perception and self-worth. If we had started out our existence around advanced humans who were more interested in what made them happy than what made us happy, we would have developed an inferiority complex, which would have marred our otherwise perfect view of ourselves. If our sense of self had been foundationalized around parents who were more concerned about their own self-image and value of happiness than ours, we would have been inclined to measure our own sense of value by theirs. And if we didn't measure up, we would have been convinced that the universe is not really about us, but rather about them. In this situation, we would never have developed a pure sense of free will, because we would have begun our experience by mimicking the experience of those who seem to be completely satisfied with their own sense of self and the happiness they were experiencing. Instead of becoming unique individuals, we would have become clones of our parents, which would not have led to a proper human experience, where individuality brings the highest level of joy possible to both our parents/creators and to ourselves. We would never have been able to find happiness in becoming like someone else. Fortunately, we are instead free to be the best that we can be, rather than worrying about how to become the best that another thinks we should be. Those who chose to be our parents in our current imperfect world generally destroyed our self-esteem and drastically diminished our chances of becoming who we really wanted to become. There is a huge contrast between advanced human parents who know what they are doing and mortal parents who have no training or proper experience in parenting. Our imperfect mortal parents create the unhappiness and inequality we experience in our current state of existence upon this earth. Untrained parents have children for their own sake, without considering the environment into which they are introducing a child. They do not consider the fact that their children are individuals with their own free will. Imperfect parents seldom understand that children are not, nor should they be expected to be, just like them. Unlike imperfect parents, our advanced mothers ensured that each child developed equally and that all of us were endowed with a sense of self-worth, which allowed us to mature into self-assured and perfect human beings, around whom the whole universe revolves. What better sense of personal empowerment could any of us have possibly desired? In no way did those who helped us foundationalize our self tell us or continually remind us what we should do with our free will. As we later discussed the ramifications of the way children are presently reared upon this earth, it will become very apparent that much of our unhappiness is a direct result of poor parenting. 14. In a perfect state, we were aware of others' imperfections. We mentioned that we were continually acquiring information in that perfect world, but not all of the knowledge we acquired was of the experience of existing as a perfect human. In these advanced societies, the technology that is available allows anyone to watch what is happening on any planet in the universe, much like using the computer effects of a universal Google, or watching a documentary about a foreign country in real time on the Discovery Channel. As we matured and surpassed the ability of our perfect world to provide us with experiences that we hadn't already stored in our memories, our mothers encouraged us to watch what happens on less advanced worlds. On these worlds, other humans were going through their second stage of development on planets similar to the Earth on which we currently live. We were able to see what happened when a new solar system was created, so that children like us could go through their second stage of development. Upon these planets, everything was the opposite of our safe and orderly, perfect world. We didn't understand death any more than we understood old age. Yet right before our eyes, in phenomenal videotype holographic presentation, we saw human beings killing each other, hurting, abusing, and taking advantage of each other, and creating societies of the most inhumane natures, which were completely out of balance with our foundationalized sense of humanity. We could not imagine how other human beings who appeared to be like us could act this way. We could not imagine it because we had not yet experienced it for ourselves. 15. Many of us wanted the same powers of creation that our creators had. As we watched these things take place on other worlds, none of us could admit that we would ever do the same things that we saw other humans doing to each other if we were placed in their exact situation. We were reared to believe that we were the best kind of life form in the universe. We could not imagine ourselves doing anything unbecoming of how we were taught a human being should act. We could not imagine it because we had not yet been placed in a situation where our humanity could be tested. Part of our foundationalized quote-unquote sense of self included the desire to possess the power and the intelligence to do what other advanced human creators could do. We saw how they could manipulate the very elements of the universe to do whatever they wanted these elements to do. We saw that their intelligence, the use of their knowledge, was indeed much different from our own, and that they were capable of doing things that we had no power to do. We saw how they interacted, unseen, with the less advanced worlds, so that they could monitor the free-willed humans who had no idea that more advanced humans even existed. These advanced beings did not let the less advanced humans know that, with their advanced knowledge and technology, they were the ones making sure that the balance of nature on the imperfect planets was being maintained. If these advanced beings did not monitor and sometimes intervene in what the unaware and imperfect humans did, the less advanced civilizations would have killed themselves and destroyed the planet they were placed on long before its purpose was fulfilled. We saw examples of power and control that convinced us that in order to be the happiest human possible, we had to have these same powers. We saw that some of them experienced a great amount of physical joy from the sexual abilities they possessed, sensations and abilities that we couldn't understand. Although we weren't expected to be like our primordial parents, it was a natural propensity for us to want to be just like them. Although most of us would choose not to take upon us the responsibility of creating new human beings, we still wanted to experience the fullness of joy that our parents did. We realized, however, that we did not know if we could be trusted with these powers, or what would happen if we were. Our creators informed us that during the second stage of our development, we would be endowed with the power to create other human beings and experience uninhibited sexual desires. We would be able to use our free will without condition and restriction by being allowed to have the power of a creator to a certain extent during our second stage in life. Many of us would come to realize why we should not be allowed to have these powers and abilities. 16. Our advanced mothers helped us to establish and understand our unique individuality. We existed in this perfect world for eons of time. Because there was no death, there was no accounting of time. We existed for what seemed to us to be the only measurement of time available, forever. Each of us developed propensities and characteristics uniquely our own. We each acquired personalities that fit into one of the three humanity-type categories mentioned previously. Some of us wanted to serve others by being creators and parents. Some of us wanted to serve ourselves and develop and create our own world to satisfy our own desires of what brought us happiness. And some of us wanted others to continue to serve us forever. Our mothers helped us to understand that most of us would never be endowed with the intelligence that would allow us to have the power that advanced human parents and creators possess in order to carry on the creation process of expanding human life. Our mothers helped us to understand and accept whom we had chosen to be. However, what they could not help us understand, because we had no experience beyond the perfect human situation, is why those of us who did not want to serve others couldn't have the same powers and abilities to control and manipulate the elements of the universe that they have. Nor could we understand, at the time, why those of us who didn't want to serve others would never be able to experience what seemed to be the ultimate physical sensations a human being could experience: sexual pleasure. We couldn't understand why we couldn't have all of the sensory pleasures possessed by our advanced parents. 17. ultimate powers are restricted to creators. During our foundationalization process, we developed a keen sense of equality. We were taught that all human beings have the exact same potential and opportunity. Yet, when we realized that only those who chose to become parents and continue to create other human beings possess the ultimate powers of the universe, we were naturally confused. It didn't make sense with respect to the idea of perfect equality. Why couldn't we all have the same power? We questioned. Our parents/creators understood our confusion. We were taught that if this incredible power to create anything we wanted was given to those of us who wanted to serve only ourselves, or to those of us who wanted to be served by others, it would be misused. They explained to us that because all human beings are free-willed and cannot be forced to act or to be acted upon, being able to use the power, except for the sake of others, would allow situations to exist that are not conducive to an orderly and peaceful universe. By watching the experiences of human beings going through their second stage of development upon planets like this Earth, we received a sure witness of how they acted, regardless of their perfect foundationalization. When those who wanted to serve themselves or to be served had the ability to create other human beings, not for the sake of the newly created person, but for their own sake, great unhappiness and inequality were and are the result. 18. Different bodies are created for each individual. We have discussed quote-unquote free will as being unique to human beings, who are the highest life form of all. We are the ultimate form of existence found anywhere in the universe. We always have been, and we always will be. Part of what gives us our unique nature is our ability to think, act, and react by our own power, without any outside force mandating what we do. This is free agency. It is the most protected right of all the laws of the universe. All other matter is subject to a universal law that allows it to act or react to an outside stimulus according to how it has been programmed. Only human beings retain their own individual power to not be affected in any way by anything outside of their own free will. This will, this power, is generated and resides in the human essence, and is properly exhibited only with a perfect human body. This exclusive human power of free will is developed and fostered by those who use their own free will to make sure our development takes place properly, and that the power within the essence becomes human. All perfect human bodies are constructed to fulfill the need and potential of the essence. Therefore, no free-willed being has the power to create the essence and the appropriate bodies that will work best with it, unless they do so only for the sake of the human beings so created. In other words, if one doesn't want the responsibility of ensuring the happiness of another's creation, one will not have the power to create. Those who have the ultimate power of creation possess the body, with all the appropriate parts, that allows them the capacity to use this power properly. Without the appropriate body, an advanced human is not able to use the power. Therefore, to ensure that the power is not misused, those who choose not to be responsible for the creation of other human beings have a different body from those who do. All perfect bodies look human. Those with the power to create have sexual body parts associated with males and females. Those without the power to create have no sex organs. But the greatest difference between a human body that can create and one that cannot is the way the body responds to the energy levels and frequency generated by the brain. 19. Science has limited control over the elements. Understanding how this power to create works will give us a better understanding of why it is only given to those who use it wisely and appropriately. Currently, our scientists have only limited power to create. They can use the elements available to create different things according to the natural laws that control and determine what the elements can do. In other words, modern-day scientists can only create what the elements allow them to create. They must work within the potential of each element and the established parameters of its structure. 20. Scientific understanding of matter is rudimentary. Before we can understand what knowledge and powers an advanced human creator has, that the most knowledgeable modern-day scientist does not, we must first understand some basic conclusions or hypotheses current scientists have made about matter. Science has determined that all matter is made up of elements that are comprised of atoms, which contain varying numbers of subatomic particles called protons, neutrons, and electrons. Now, don't get lost here. It will all begin to make sense. The number of protons an atom has determines what element it is. For example, hydrogen is hydrogen because every one of its atoms has a single proton. It is theorized, which means it makes sense, although no one is positive, that for each proton there is an electron that balances the atom. There are elements that exist naturally, that is, science had nothing to do with their creation, and there are elements that scientists have created. Science has learned to create its own elements by changing the number of protons. It does this through the use of energy. Although elements can be destroyed, their protons, neutrons, and electrons cannot. In simple terms, when scientists add energy or take it away, they can cause one element to turn into another. As far as current scientific theory concludes, it is a common natural phenomenon for elements to continually be created and destroyed. The best example of this is our own sun. The energy of the sun is so strong that, at its center, atoms of hydrogen, containing only one proton, are forcefully compressed so that their protons combine to create helium, which has two protons, again, according to current scientific theory. Thus, the hydrogen is destroyed and helium is created, at least according to what science can determine is taking place. However, the more protons an atom has, the more energy it takes to change it into another element. Because science has reached this conclusion, it believes that to create carbon and iron, for example, which have considerably more protons than hydrogen, and are the fundamental elements needed to create a new Earth, it would take much more energy than even the sun could provide in order to create them. The sun appears to be the greatest source of energy in our solar system. As discussed, science has theorized that both the sun and the Earth were created when a massive star exploded in an event known as a quote-unquote supernova. They speculate that the star blew itself apart and that this provided the energy needed to create more dense atoms, those with more protons, that make up planets and suns. From this conclusion emerged the so-called Big Bang theory of creation, which has been accepted as the explanation of how all things exist. But this theory leaves a reasonable mind wondering, if a star exploded, or a Big Bang created the star that exploded, and that created the Earth and this solar system, then what quote-unquote Big Bang created the elements that reacted to create the Big Bang? Where did the energy come from that caused the very first Big Bang? Needless to say, science has left too many questions unanswered. Therefore, their conclusions cannot be the real truth that humans so desperately seek to find. Real truth provides answers that leave no other questions to ask. 21. A limited amount of element can create tremendous energy. What science doesn't appreciate is that it has already helped answer these questions without even realizing it. Our scientists have learned how to create elements. They have learned how to utilize the energy contained in the makeup of the elements. They have demonstrated this very well in the creation of nuclear bombs that give off a tremendous amount of energy from a very limited amount of element. It takes just a few pounds of enriched, quote-unquote enriched, meaning human intervention, to increase the proportion of a desired ingredient. Uranium, for example, to create enough energy to destroy an entire country. So, if our current scientists know how to create new elements and control the energy contained within them, why is it so hard to accept that advanced human beings have developed the knowledge and power to manipulate and control elements in ways that current scientists could never dream of doing at the present time? Why can't current scientists accept that they and their past mentors have absolutely no idea what the true potential of elements actually is? Furthermore, why can't they admit that they do not understand, nor are they aware of, many other more powerful elements found in the universe? If someone would have told those early imperfect pioneers who first discovered and began to experiment with elements that one day future scientists would be creating their own elements that would be used to destroy the Earth, they would probably have responded, "Oh, that's the fantasy thinking of science fiction. It will never happen." But it did. And more advanced humans have the ability to control elements that current scientists could never imagine, according to their limited and restricted knowledge and experience. 22. Mystery of creation is found in quote-unquote dark matter. It should not be hard to theorize and accept that an advanced human scientist has the means to travel to different parts of the universe where there is space without a sun or a solar system, and, with the knowledge and power to do so, create a completely new solar system. This advanced one can then create more new solar systems until he has created a whole new galaxy, and then even more new galaxies until he has become the creator of a whole new part of the universe. This is accomplished by using advanced technology controlled by advanced human beings who have the answer to a question that modern scientists cannot solve. What is dark matter? Dark matter is all the matter that fills the gaps in the universe where science cannot place any known matter. Scientists have hypothesized that it is matter that does not interact with any other matter and has no electrical charge or transference of energy patterns. The answer to the question, what is dark matter, is as simple as the answers to all of the questions posed in this book. To illustrate exactly what dark matter is, let's take a look at the color quote-unquote black. The color black appears to be a combination of every known color. Likewise, the dark matter, or black matter, of the universe is a compilation of all of the potential energy, or better, all the protons, neutrons, and electrons needed to create any element in the universe. Quote-unquote dark matter, therefore, is a collection of everything needed to create anything in the universe. The secret lies in knowing how to transform dark matter into the elements that make up all other matter. Or in other words, create something new that didn't exist before. This is achieved by forming energy patterns where none existed before. In quote-unquote dark matter, the mass of protons, neutrons, and electrons is already there, but these subatomic particles are not yet configured properly to create the force of energy generated when they interact inside the atoms of matter that form everything in the universe, from rocks to the cells of the human brain. Advanced human scientists know exactly how to perform the proper configuration. They know how to control energy levels to create anything they want. In other words, every proton, neutron, and electron found in the universe is at their command. 23. Our limited ability to control element. To further understand the vast power of advanced science, we need to take a look at the abilities of modern scientists to create and control elements, and then distinguish these abilities from those of advanced creators. To begin to comprehend these things, those of us who are not scientists need to understand that each of us has a limited power to control the elements. To raise one arm above our head, our brain sends out an energy impulse that contracts our muscles, which are made up of elements, and causes our arm to move as we want it to. Our arm will not move until, by the use of our free will, we make it. Each time we do this, we are manipulating elements with the energy generated by our mind. Yes, even the extremely limited power of our own mind can control element. Our current scientists can actually measure the energy that is generated by our brain anytime we think or move by simply placing electrodes on one's head. This means that there is obviously a measurable degree of energy transference given off by our brain that is powerful enough to go through the thick bones of our skull each time we raise our arm above our head. 24. Current scientific theory is incomplete. Current science does not understand all there is to know about protons, neutrons, and electrons. In fact, none of these things have ever even been seen by modern-day scientists. The existence of these subatomic particles is the product of scientific experimentation and theories based on what scientists can observe with the senses of their body. If current scientists cannot see it, smell it, taste it, touch it, or hear it, these quote unquote learned and self perceived quote unquote wise ones will not accept what is possible beyond their non advanced human perception. Without empirical evidence, science is forced to develop uncertain theories and hypotheses of what it observes. Here's the great hypocrisy of the scientific mind. No scientist has ever seen, smelled, tasted, touched, or heard a proton, neutron, or electron. Therefore, how do they know these things exist? The answer is they actually don't. Scientists have created these ideas and theorems in their minds to explain things that they don't understand. And it is a personal blow to a scientific mind when it cannot find some way of explaining why things are the way they are. For this very reason, it can be properly, even scientifically, postulated that what scientists know today will be proven incorrect or insufficient compared to what will be known by future humans. 25. Advanced scientists create with the power of their thoughts. Again, we have presented the fact that there exist and have always existed societies of advanced humans who have developed a true and complete understanding of all there is to know about the universe and how it works. Some of these advanced human beings, those who are trusted with the knowledge and power of creation, have the type of brain that allows them to manipulate protons, neutrons, and electrons and create any element outside of their bodies. Just as easily, we can command the elements that make up the muscles of our body to raise our arm above our head. They can cause the creation and destruction of any element in the universe by their thoughts alone. Elements do not even need to exist for advanced creators to create something. All protons, neutrons, and electrons are compositions of specific energy levels, levels that can be measured and controlled and found anywhere in the universe. The creator's perfect brain can put these energy levels together from the actual energy emanating from their own brains and accomplish what our current minds can only envision, erroneously, as, quote unquote, creating something out of nothing. 26. The essence produces perpetual energy. The energy of thought is produced by the power of our essence. As mentioned previously, modern science does not understand, nor has it discovered, all of the elements of the universe. In other words, there exist elements of energy levels, mass, different from those of which scientists are currently aware. And just as a nuclear reaction takes place and releases extraordinary amounts of energy from a relatively small mass of element, the human essence is made up of elements that can release an even more powerful energy. The difference between the way energy is released during a nuclear or atomic reaction of the elements, as manipulated by modern science, and the way the elements of our essence react is in the containment of the energy. A nuclear reaction of enriched uranium, for example, continues until the energy of the element has completely dissipated. But in addition, the reaction can also give off a harmful byproduct called radiation. The reaction that gives power to our essence, however, exists in a completely contained subatomic vacuum, for want of a better term to explain it. where it is confined within the boundaries set for a human essence. The byproduct of the reaction creates the energy needed to continue the reaction. In other words, our essence is a perpetual energy factory. 27. All elements are equal to advanced scientists. Advanced scientists can command energy levels to produce 79 protons, 79 electrons, and 118 neutrons, which would cause pure gold to appear out of nowhere. For this reason, to them, gold is worth about as much as the nitrogen, oxygen, argon, carbon, neon, helium, methane, krypton, hydrogen, and xenon that make up most of the air we breathe. But what modern-day scientist, if he or she had the knowledge and power, would create air instead of pure gold? What modern-day scientist would keep his or her knowledge and ability to understand and control the energy levels of atoms away from those who would use it to create an atomic weapon that can destroy life? Although they cannot create gold, our current scientists trade their knowledge and abilities for quote-unquote gold, known and valued as quote-unquote money. And as long as someone offers them enough gold, they do not have much personal concern for what the buyer of their knowledge does with it. The power of creation and control on earth goes to the highest bidder. For this reason, modern-day scientists who would sell their knowledge for money could never be trusted as advanced human creators. 28. Advanced humans control the environment. Everything associated with human perfection is created and controlled by advanced human beings who know how to do it properly. The perfect planet on which we went through our human foundationalization process had the perfect food to eat and taste, the perfect clothes to wear, the perfect architecture for the perfect houses, the perfect animals, and the perfect plants, etc. It provided us with the perfect environment in which we developed the perfect sense of sight, smell, sound, taste, and touch. All of this was controlled and maintained by advanced human beings who knew exactly what perfection should be. 29. We needed to experience imperfection. Being around this seemingly omnipotent, advanced society of humans in our primordial childhood, we were provided with the opportunity to choose to be like them or not. There has never been a free-willed human being who would not want the incredible power of creation described above. However, very, very few will ever be trusted with it. Again, during the time we were experiencing life as a perfect human being, we couldn't understand why we couldn't be trusted with the power if we were properly trained how to use it. In a perfect world, we would never understand why. Our creators explained to us that the only way we would ever understand this would be for us to go through our own second stage of development and see for ourselves how we would react when allowed to exist on our own without the intervention or the help of our advanced parents/creators. We needed to experience the opposite of a perfect world and place ourselves in the same situations as the other less advanced humans we observed on other planets, whom we thought we would never act like. In addition, our mothers explained that for us to truly appreciate everything we had experienced in a perfect world, we would have to experience the opposite. To truly appreciate our own perfect existence, we had to experience an imperfect existence. We cannot appreciate something we have always had. The only way to truly appreciate it is to have it taken away from us. To help us appreciate our perfect world, therefore, our first parents created an imperfect one for us. Summary: advanced worlds have always existed. These worlds establish the precedent for the ultimate human experience. We were created on these worlds as individuals. Because our humanity was foundationalized there, we developed an inner sense of what our existence should be like. Our essence causes us to long for what we had, but we can't consciously remember what it was like to live in this type of a world. In our current state, we realize that simply living and dying is not conducive to a perfect situation for us. It confuses our sense of humanity. We find it hard to accept that, once dead, our existence is finalized. However, what we do know for certain is that we do not want to live forever in the imperfect state in which we currently find ourselves. We realize that the more we advance through technology, the easier it is to exist. But it does not necessarily mean that we are going to become any happier. We find that we have the power to change our environment and control many aspects of our existence. With our knowledge, we attempt to create a better world for ourselves so that we can experience more happiness, which is finding a balance between our current state of existence and the life we subconsciously long for. We want and expect unconditional equality and the guarantee that each of us can become who he or she wants to become. In our primordial state, we saw the powers and abilities that our advanced human creators had, and many of us desired to have the same. Yet, the laws of the universe restrict these creative powers and associated abilities only to those who choose to continue human life. We realize that our personal choice not to serve others and be responsible for their happiness would limit our human abilities. During our foundationalization stage of development, we were of the opinion that we could be trusted with these quintessential human powers. We rejected the option that we would act as we observed other human beings acting who were going through their experience in an imperfect world. Only our own experience in such a world could convince us that our chosen humanity type could not be trusted with these powers. This is one of the main purposes for living in our own imperfect world as we do now.